Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good, good. Well, my name is Justice, and I am one moving piece in the collective us that makes up what we call Edges. And I'm grateful to be with you today. Very, very grateful. Almost more grateful that I am to be in front of you today. And that's because honestly, I am really, really afraid to give this message. And it's because it means a lot to me. And I know it means a lot to the people in this room. I'm grateful to be with you because I know I'm going to need your help, all of your help, to bring more of life and God to the conversation that is in front of us today. So the past couple of weeks, we have been living into the series Act Out, in which we have been exploring meaning and relevance all throughout the book of Acts. And what we found together is that Acts is about the church taking its first steps, with God's help, towards aligning itself into a community that looks more like, sounds more like, and acts more like God. It's the church's coming of age story, if you will, and how the church was on the move, quite literally, from Jerusalem to Cyprus to Galatia to Greece to Ephesus to Caesarea to Rome. Here at Edges, we took that quite literally as well. And last week, we saw it worthy of worship to venture over to a little elementary school down the road. We saw that worthy of worship to help some elementary school kids and staff that God cares a lot about and that a lot of people in this room care a lot about. In the same time, last week, many of our friends boarded a flight to the DR to join in on some of God's dreams that were happening right there. More on that next week. However, today, we are going to explore some of the ways the church in Acts took its first steps in a different sense. One that was much less about mileage and more about mindset. One that involved re-examining the validity of some old ideas and beliefs that no longer held up. One that truly involved migrating alongside a God that was bound to meet them in their journey. In fact, a God who was already ahead of them, setting life and love into motion. Today, my friends, is about inclusivity. I don't know exactly what comes to your mind when you hear the word inclusivity, but I'm sure something does. One of the first things that I think about is food. And anybody that knows me knows that I take French fries very, very seriously. And not in the overly critical type of way, but in a I seriously take and eat all the French fries at the table, all of them. Waffle fries, beer battered fries, sweet potato fries, crinkle cut, you name them, I can truly go on for longer than you all might expect. But you get the point. And one very important question that I ask myself before I settle on a bar or a grill for dinner is, are the fries served as complimentary sides? Or are they a la carte? Which is really just a beautifully successful set of French words used to get more money out of my pocket. However, as I have grown up, I have noticed more and more restaurants following the ways of the French, as to not include fries with the meal. I've begun to notice that there is usually a cost towards inclusivity. Because I was curious and a bit bored this weekend, I did what most people do. I asked the question, Alexa, what is the definition of inclusivity? And in her usual know-it-all type of voice, she gave me several definitions. And in the context of today, she defined inclusivity as the practice or policy of including people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. And the word that caught my eye in that definition was marginalized. So then naturally, I asked Alexa, what is the definition of marginalized? In which she responded, of or relating to a person, group, or concept treated as insignificant or peripheral. Peripheral. It doesn't seem like a complete lack of care or acknowledgement, just not something in our direct focus. I wonder what are some of the daily life things that we treat as peripheral. So go ahead and call them back to me. What are some things you consider as peripheral amidst your daily priorities? Go. The news. Talking to strangers. Calling home. That's me. Dusting. Long-term vacay or thinking? Thinking. How about one more? Laundry. And the whole church said amen to that. Yep. So yeah, all of those things are peripheral. And I think those are just the beginning. I think those are just the first things that come to our head. But I wonder if we could even conclude that the reason some of these things in our life are peripheral is because of the things that have our direct attention. In fact, I wonder if a lot of these constructs, institutions, and beliefs would justify their lack of inclusivity because there are simply bigger things to worry about. Maybe inclusivity is less about where we lean politically and just more about the idea that we have earned the right to attach values on worth and people and things. Could it be that very idea that has led to those constructs, institutions, and beliefs, that has led those constructs, institutions, and beliefs to the nowhere place that is years and years of stagnation? A refusal to move. A refusal to move alongside God and people and creation. Three things that, might I add, are always moving. So, what do we do with that? How does one metaphorically move? How can we migrate in mindset and heart? Peter and the apostles wrestled with this all throughout the book of Acts, a book that is chock full of geographical migration that was absolutely newsworthy for the time. And while today it's not jaw-dropping to hear about or be the people that are traveling internationally, that's because the structures and systems of the time consisted of a set of people that had committed their life to living a set mission. Jerusalem had their set people and their set mission. Cyprus had their set people and their set mission. And Galatia and Greece and Ephesus and Caesarea and even Rome. And still, I wonder if it may be unfair to lump these countries alongside truly exclusive communities. I mean, when you think about it, surely they didn't really know what they were doing was harmful or exclusive. They were simply doing what they've always done, the way they've always done them, and with the people they've always done them with. As for me, most places I have lived, especially Blacksburg, have felt like this. Looking at it from the outside in, I really did wonder if this town could hold all of my identities, or my friends with similar minority identities. Even though picturesque Blue Ridge Mountains and a highly acclaimed service-oriented university seem like the perfect border around a community in which to claim the statement, "This is home," I had to be honest with the reality that for many people, including myself, here has not always felt like home. My reality has constantly reminded me that my dulling down, my slipping through the cracks, my silence, my lack of a seat at the table, and my acting inwards can all be the very necessary things for sustaining norms and traditions that have for so long worked to keep the in and the out out. And if I'm being honest with you, even in the occurrences in which I do have a seat at the table, it is nearly impossible to bring myself to complete comfort because of the inherent awareness that my seat at the table could just as easily be stripped at any given moment because of the powers at hand. I wonder how often other establishments feel like that to the newcomer. I wonder how often church feels like that to the minority. And I wonder how often this space might feel like that to the people in the peripheral. You know, this makes me wonder if inclusivity cannot exist independently from movement, what might be required of people striving to be inclusive? It seems that it requires a step further from just looking out, but acting out. And it seems like the kind of thing that is going to take all of us to set into motion. At Edges, we see a lot of value not only in the people around us, but in their thoughts and perspectives. So right now, I'm going to invite everyone to get into a group of 4 or 5 people and explore some possible routes for the following questions together. The questions being, what are some actions that established structures like the church can put into motion to promote inclusivity? And what traditions or patterns might we need to leave in order to make space for more diverse community? These are big questions. I know. But I think being in this place and with these people makes for the perfect recipe to start wondering about them together. I'm going to give you about 6 minutes to think together, and then I'm going to call us back so that we can share. So feel free to enter the conversation however is best for you, whether talking or listening. Know that we will need both, but just know that odds are entering this conversation will be uncomfortable. It just will be. But I have to trust that the discomfort will lead to greater movement, just as I invite all of you to trust that your ideas will literally shape our next steps. So thank you for being willing and including the people around you. Ready? Go. about 1 more minute. 1 more minute, everyone. All right, everyone, get those last thoughts in. All right, everyone, go ahead and come back. Find your way back to a good place. Seems like there was a lot of great conversation happening in the room. It seems like there was a lot of different voices talking and a lot of different ears listening. Seemed like the perfect thing that could bring back a full, well-rounded message. All right, so bring it on back. So now, a lot of great conversation. So if you have in a sound bite, in a little, you could fit what you want to say in this finger distance. Go ahead and call back out something interesting that you said or something interesting that someone at your table said. So what are some actions that established structures like the church can put into motion to promote inclusivity? So maybe times just like that promote inclusivity, where we come outside of our original or established groups and we meet other people and we hear other thoughts. What else?
We had conversations about how it doesn't just matter to make your congregation, it also matters to make people that are in the pulpit. So you really need to reach out, not just have kids in the pulpit, not just have white people in the pulpit, but have a variety of pieces, people of different races, creeds, classes, so that you're open to conversation.
So Christian said it's important that in a way that our community and an established structure or the church represents the greater community so that we have more of what's out there in here.
And just as my example of accepting all of God's children. We accept people of all races, of all genders. We are accepting of all people. And that is philosophy of acceptance in the Christian.
So Lou said, just by edges, leading by example, accepting or saying that everyone has a seat at the table here.
It's a little bit ironic. Our group sort of agreed that an institution like Edges could envision and enact programs that model inclusivity. But until an organization like Edges capacitates individuals to be inclusive on an individual level, It isn't really happening. And ironically, the other insight to that is it will happen most powerfully at the individual level when we move from the I orientation of ego to the we orientation of community as we act as individuals.
That was excellent. So what he said was that maybe we need to move in the direction that is an individual inclusivity. Lori?
No, I was just saying that was an awesome statement.
It was an awesome statement. Yes.
So I would say that taking a stance against the higher bureaucracies that stand in the way of inclusivity, as an individual community, making sure that when there's things that are telling us what we need to do or what we need to believe to be a part of this larger structure, take a stance against that and say, no, that's not who we are. We want to be an inclusive community, and sometimes that means making hard decisions and standing up for what we believe in as a community when the powers that be are saying, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, so Callum said sometimes it involves us acting out truly on our beliefs, even if that means going against some other higher structures.
I think what Daryl's saying is that we've got to change the rules. We've got to change our vision. We've got to look farther beyond where the rules have been and modify it so that we're truly God's people.
So we might have to change the rules. And one last one over here.
We can reconsider GC 2019 and change the book of this book.
Well, as we knew it was going to get there at some point, so DC 2019. So how about the second question? What might be some things that we need to leave? A few of those.
I think there's a fear that comes about anytime you might be put in a situation where you need to talk with someone that you don't relate to on a, we're both white or we're both straight or any of those kind of levels. And I think that pushing through that uncomfortableness to make that connection is actually where you both are vulnerable in the sense that God can come and move in your life. And so kind of training ourselves not to fear that wall, but to actually push through it and to trust that that's who we choose to work.
So Luke said maybe us going against those walls and maybe even the awareness that there are walls to begin with.
Being more accountable for yourself, like keeping people accountable, when you hear things like little comments, little things people have in place, like a lot bigger, because they really talk about it, and everybody's like expecting that just other people accountable. That's also scary because that means stepping out of your comfort zone and saying something when you can just kind of forget about it and move on with your day, but more so like stepping out, even if it's stupid.
And so Nikki said we might need to leave that passerby mentality.
Challenging the statement of like, well, this is just how it's always been, or this is just the way it is, and like follow up with questions and saying, like, well, can you say more about like why do you think it should be this way, or why has it, just follow up with questions like that and challenge people a little bit more.
Yeah, so wondering about the status quo, wondering if how it's always been has to be how it always will be. So yeah, I think that seems like a great starting place for where this conversation is going. I wonder if some of the things that you all just called out that we might need to leave might just be fancy synonyms for certainty. There's a moment in Acts where Peter confronted his certainty and need for control. And here's what he ended up finding. It's in Acts 10:34. Then Peter began to speak. I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, but accepts from every nation the one who fears him and does what is right. Peter now realized At one point, he didn't, but now he does. There was a shift and an openness to be shifted. Might Peter's ability to be informed in the present mean there is a God who never capped the pen to his mission for the church? And might that mean that there is a God who is constantly refining, reinstating, and clarifying his mission to a people and church who have manufactured holes inside of it to keep some in the peripheral? Could it be that our willingness to shift the people in our peripheral to the front lines of focus mean the difference between life and death for them? This is why inclusivity matters. Not just for this denomination, that's too small of thinking, but for each individual person that makes up church and the people on the outside of it living and dying to get in. I wonder the things we would set into motion if we claimed that, not as an option, but as our responsibility. Might we become a church known to act out alongside a moving God whose life-giving and inclusive message is that if one is available to all, then all are surely available to one. Might we let that be for all? Amen.